What if I told you that one of the most powerful natural compounds for male vitality after 60 has been sitting in your kitchen this entire time, and almost no one is talking about it in the way that actually matters? Here is a number that stopped me cold the first time I read it in a clinical study. Over 68% of men over the age of 60 report significant declines in energy, libido, physical strength, and mental sharpness, and the overwhelming majority of them simply accept it as an unavoidable part of getting older. They chalk it up to age, they lower their expectations, they stop pursuing the life they used to live. But what if that decline is not inevitable? What if the story you have been told about aging and male vitality is fundamentally incomplete? There is a man I want to tell you about. He walked into my consultation room at 63 years old looking like he had already given up. Not on life exactly, but on the version of himself he used to be. He said to me, "Doc, I do not even feel like a man anymore." And what happened over the next 4 months changed how I think about everything I knew about nutrition, hormones, and the aging male body. I am a urologist with over 2 decades of clinical experience working specifically with men's health, hormonal function, and age-related decline in male vitality. I have seen thousands of patients, reviewed hundreds of studies, and spent years trying to understand why some men age powerfully while others seem to fade. And what I am about to share with you in the next 20 minutes is not something you are going to find neatly laid out in a single place anywhere else. Today, we are going to talk about raw cacao, what it actually contains at a biological level, why it is one of the most underestimated tools for male health after 60, and critically, what you need to mix it with every morning to unlock its full potential. We are going to talk about the hormonal changes that happen in the male body after 60, why most men are fighting an uphill battle they do not even know they are fighting, and how a surprisingly simple morning ritual can begin to shift things in a direction you thought was behind you. By the end of this video, you will understand your own body in a way that most men never do, and you will have a clear, practical, science-backed plan to start reclaiming your vitality. So stay with me, because this is one of those conversations that genuinely has the power to change the trajectory of how you age. Let us start at the very beginning, because to understand why raw cacao matters so much for men over 60, you first need to understand what is actually happening inside the male body as it moves through its 6th decade and beyond. Most men are vaguely aware that testosterone declines with age. They have heard the term low T. They may have even had a blood test that showed their levels creeping downward. But what most men do not realize is that the decline is not just about testosterone in isolation. It is about an entire cascade of interconnected systems that begin to shift simultaneously. And by the time you feel it, the process has often been underway for a decade or more. After the age of 30, testosterone levels in men decline at a rate of roughly 1 to 2% per year. By 60, many men have lost anywhere from 30 to 50% of the testosterone they had in their prime. But here is what the conversation usually misses. It is not just about how much testosterone your body produces. It is about how much of it your body can actually use. There is a protein in your blood called sex hormone binding globulin, and as men age, levels of this protein rise significantly. What sex hormone binding globulin does is bind to testosterone and render it biologically inactive. So even if your total testosterone reading looks reasonably acceptable on paper, the amount of free testosterone your cells can actually access and respond to may be dramatically lower. This is why so many men with seemingly normal lab values still feel the full weight of hormonal decline. Their free testosterone is compromised, their cells are not getting the signal they need, and the downstream effects touch everything from energy and mood to libido and muscle mass. Now add to this picture something that almost never gets discussed with patients. As estrogen levels rise relative to testosterone in aging men, a condition sometimes called estrogen dominance can develop. Yes, men have estrogen. It is essential in the right amounts. But when the balance tips too far, it accelerates fat accumulation, particularly around the abdomen, it suppresses libido, it contributes to emotional flatness, and it further inhibits testosterone activity. The male body after 60 is often navigating this hormonal tightrope without any guidance or support. And then there is the vascular piece. Sexual function, physical endurance, and even cognitive sharpness in men are profoundly dependent on healthy blood flow and robust nitric oxide production. Nitric oxide is a molecule produced by the cells lining your blood vessels, and it is responsible for allowing those vessels to dilate, to relax, to let blood flow freely and powerfully to the tissues that need it. After 60, nitric oxide production in most men has declined significantly. The endothelium, which is the inner lining of your blood vessels, becomes less responsive. Circulation slows. Tissues receive less oxygen and fewer nutrients. And this is felt not just in sexual performance, but in every aspect of physical and mental vitality. This is the landscape. This is what a man over 60 is working with. And this is exactly why raw cacao, combined with the right ingredients, becomes so extraordinarily relevant. Raw cacao is not cocoa powder from a supermarket shelf. I want to be very clear about that distinction because it is critical. Commercial cocoa powder has been processed at high temperatures and treated with alkali in a process called Dutching, which dramatically reduces its active compound content. Raw cacao is the unprocessed, minimally heated product derived from the cacao bean, and it retains a concentration of biologically active compounds that is genuinely remarkable. Let me walk you through the key ones and explain exactly why each matters for the aging male body. The first and most celebrated compound in raw cacao is theobromine. Theobromine is a methylxanthine, a close cousin of caffeine, but with a fundamentally different profile of effects. Unlike caffeine, which delivers a sharp spike followed by a crash and often provokes cortisol release and anxiety, theobromine provides a sustained, smooth elevation in energy and alertness without the adrenal stress response. For men over 60 who are already dealing with elevated baseline cortisol from the physiological stress of aging, this distinction is enormous. High cortisol is one of the most potent suppressors of testosterone production known to endocrinology. Every time you provoke a significant cortisol spike, you are essentially telling your body to deprioritize testosterone synthesis. Theobromine gives you the energy lift without that hormonal cost. But the compound in raw cacao that gets me genuinely excited from a urological and cardiovascular standpoint is epicatechin. Epicatechin is a flavonol, a type of polyphenol, and it is one of the most potent natural stimulators of nitric oxide synthase that we know of. What that means in plain language is that epicatechin powerfully stimulates your blood vessel cells to produce more nitric oxide. Remember that nitric oxide is the molecule that relaxes and dilates blood vessels, improving blood flow throughout the entire body. The clinical research on epicatechin and vascular function is compelling. Studies have shown that regular consumption of epicatechin-rich raw cacao can measurably improve endothelial function, reduce arterial stiffness, and enhance peripheral blood flow. For men over 60, this translates directly into better physical performance, better sexual function, better cardiovascular health, and sharper mental acuity. One study out of Harvard found that populations consuming high amounts of flavanol-rich cacao had remarkably lower rates of cardiovascular mortality compared to those who consumed little or none. Then there is the magnesium content of raw cacao. This one surprises people every time I mention it. Raw cacao is one of the single richest dietary sources of magnesium on the planet, and magnesium deficiency is rampant in aging men. Conservative estimates suggest that over 70% of adults over 50 are consuming insufficient magnesium daily. Why does this matter for male vitality? Because magnesium plays a direct role in testosterone biosynthesis. It is a cofactor in the enzymatic reactions that produce testosterone from its precursors. Studies published in journals of endocrinology have found a statistically significant positive correlation between magnesium levels and total and free testosterone concentrations in men. Men with higher magnesium levels simply tend to have higher testosterone levels. Beyond hormones, magnesium is essential for muscle function, sleep quality, insulin sensitivity, stress regulation, and cardiovascular health. Every single one of those domains is critically relevant to how a man over 60 feels and functions. Raw cacao also contains phenylethylamine, a compound sometimes called the molecule of joy, which modulates dopaminergic and serotonergic activity in the brain. It is part of why cacao has been associated since ancient times with elevated mood, mental clarity, and a sense of well-being. For men navigating the emotional flatness and motivational decline that often accompanies hormonal changes, this neurochemical support is far from trivial. Now here is where the morning ritual becomes truly powerful. Raw cacao alone is impressive, but when you combine it with specific synergistic ingredients, you create something that works on multiple hormonal and vascular pathways simultaneously. Let me tell you about the man I mentioned at the beginning of this video. His name was Robert, 63 years old, retired engineer, married for 35 years. When he came to me, he had been experiencing profound fatigue, near complete loss of libido, significant weight gain around his midsection, and what he described as a total loss of drive, not just sexually, but in every dimension of life. He had stopped exercising, he had stopped pursuing hobbies. He told me he felt like a ghost in his own life. His lab work showed low free testosterone, elevated sex hormone binding globulin, elevated cortisol, and suboptimal magnesium levels. His fasting insulin was elevated, suggesting early metabolic dysfunction. His vascular health markers suggested endothelial compromise. We did not immediately jump to pharmaceutical intervention. Instead, I asked Robert if he was willing to commit to a very structured nutritional protocol for 90 days before we discussed any pharmaceutical options. He agreed. The centerpiece of that protocol was a specific morning drink that I had been refining based on the emerging research on raw cacao and its synergistic compounds. And 4 months later, Robert came back into my office. He had lost 14 pounds. His free testosterone had increased by 31%. His energy was back. His libido had returned. His wife pulled me aside after the appointment and thanked me in a way that told me everything I needed to know about how comprehensive his recovery had been. Robert's story is not unique. I have seen similar trajectories in patient after patient once they commit to addressing these foundational biochemical deficits through nutrition rather than waiting until pharmaceutical intervention becomes unavoidable. The key to the morning ritual is understanding what raw cacao needs alongside it to work most effectively. The first and perhaps most important addition is ashwagandha root extract. Ashwagandha is an adaptogenic herb with a genuinely impressive body of clinical evidence behind it, specifically for male hormonal health. A randomized controlled trial, published in a peer-reviewed journal of alternative medicine, found that men taking ashwagandha extract for 60 days experienced a 24% increase in testosterone levels and a significant reduction in cortisol. This is exactly the hormonal combination you want. Lower cortisol, higher testosterone. Ashwagandha contains compounds called withanolides that appear to act at multiple points in the hormonal axis, both reducing the cortisol burden that suppresses testosterone and potentially directly stimulating luteinizing hormone activity, which signals the testes to produce more testosterone. When you combine ashwagandha with the magnesium and epicatechin from raw cacao, you're addressing the testosterone production problem from several angles simultaneously. The second addition that transforms this morning ritual is maca root. Maca is a Peruvian root vegetable that has been used for centuries by Andean populations for energy, fertility, and sexual vitality. The modern research on maca is fascinating. Unlike ashwagandha, maca does not appear to directly elevate testosterone in all studies, but it consistently demonstrates improvements in libido, sexual function, and energy that appear to operate through mechanisms partly independent of testosterone. Maca contains unique compounds called macamides and macalines that appear to influence the hypothalamus-pituitary axis and may modulate estrogen receptor sensitivity. For men dealing with relative estrogen dominance, this is particularly valuable. Maca also contains significant amounts of zinc, which is essential for testosterone synthesis and is depleted by stress, alcohol, and simply the passage of time. The third ingredient I recommend adding is a small amount of healthy fat, specifically either grass-fed butter or a high-quality MCT oil. This is not just about flavor or creaminess, though it helps with both. It is about absorption. Many of the active flavonols in raw cacao and the bioactive compounds in ashwagandha and maca are fat-soluble or have significantly enhanced bioavailability in the presence of dietary fat. Adding a fat source to your morning cacao drink meaningfully increases how much of those active compounds your gut actually absorbs and delivers to your bloodstream. Let me now give you the specific, actionable protocol so you know exactly how to implement this starting tomorrow morning. The foundation is raw cacao powder, not Dutch processed cocoa, but genuine raw cacao. You are looking for a minimum of 2 tablespoons per serving. This gives you a meaningful therapeutic dose of epicachin, theobromine, magnesium, and phenylethylamine. Source it from a reputable supplier and look for products that specify raw and unprocessed on the label. To this, you will add half a teaspoon of high-quality ashwagandha extract. Look for a product standardized to at least 5% withanolides for clinical relevance. Many ashwagandha supplements on the market are understandardized and will give you little benefit. The withanolide content is what drives the cortisol-reducing and testosterone-supporting effects. Add 1 teaspoon of maca root powder. Gelatinized maca, which has been gently heat-treated to remove raw starches, tends to be easier on the digestive system and is the form I recommend to most patients. Black maca specifically has shown the strongest effects for male energy and libido in comparative studies, though any quality maca will provide benefit. Blend all of this into your preferred warm liquid base. Warm water works. Unsweetened almond milk adds a pleasant creaminess. If you can tolerate dairy, warm whole milk provides additional fats that enhance absorption. Add your healthy fat at this stage, either a teaspoon of MCT oil or half a teaspoon of grass-fed butter or ghee. Blend or whisk vigorously until fully incorporated. If you need to sweeten it, use a small amount of raw honey, which carries its own beneficial enzymes and polyphenols, or pure maple syrup. Avoid refined sugar, which provokes an insulin response that suppresses testosterone. Consume this drink every single morning on a relatively empty stomach or with a light protein-rich breakfast. Consistency is everything here. The compounds in raw cacao, ashwagandha, and maca are not acute pharmaceuticals that work in a single dose. They work cumulatively over weeks and months, gradually restoring enzymatic pathways, rebuilding hormonal reserves, and improving vascular responsiveness. Most men begin noticing meaningful improvements in energy and sleep quality within 2 to 3 weeks. Libido and sexual function improvements typically emerge between weeks 4 and 8. The full benefit curve usually peaks around the 3 to 4 month mark with consistent daily use. Beyond the morning drink, there are supporting practices that dramatically amplify its effectiveness. Sleep is non-negotiable. Testosterone synthesis occurs predominantly during deep sleep, specifically during the slow wave and REM phases. Men who consistently sleep less than 6 hours per night can lose up to 15% of their testosterone production. Prioritize 7 to 9 hours of quality sleep as a medical intervention, not a luxury. Resistance exercise, even modest amounts of weight training 2 to 3 times per week, is one of the most potent natural testosterone stimulants available. It increases growth hormone, reduces body fat, particularly the abdominal fat that accelerates estrogen conversion, and directly stimulates androgenic pathways. Even 20 minutes of resistance training 3 days a week produces measurable hormonal benefits. Reduce alcohol consumption. Alcohol is metabolized in a way that directly suppresses testosterone synthesis and increases estrogen activity. Even moderate regular alcohol intake contributes meaningfully to the hormonal imbalance many men over 60 are experiencing. Now let me share something that almost nobody in mainstream medicine talks about, and I want you to really absorb this because it reframes the entire conversation about male aging. Raw cacao contains a compound called Anandamide, named from the Sanskrit word for bliss. Anandamide is an endocannabinoid, which means it binds to the same receptors in your brain and body as the active compounds in cannabis, but it is produced naturally by your own body and is also found in raw cacao. What is extraordinary about anandamide in the context of male vitality is not just its mood-elevating effects, though those are real and significant. It is the role anandamide plays in the regulation of the hypothalamic pituitary gonadal axis, which is the master control system for testosterone production. Endocannabinoid receptor activity in the hypothalamus directly influences the pulsatile release of gonadotropin-releasing hormone, which is the hormonal signal that starts the entire cascade leading to testosterone synthesis. Emerging research suggests that healthy endocannabinoid tone may be a prerequisite for optimal hormonal function in aging men, and that anandamide deficiency, which is exacerbated by chronic stress and processed food diets, may be an underappreciated contributor to the hormonal decline we see in older men. Raw cacao also contains inhibitors of the enzyme that breaks down anandamide in your body, meaning it not only provides anandamide directly, but helps your body preserve and extend the activity of the anandamide it produces naturally. This is a sophisticated, multi-layered neurochemical and endocrine mechanism that pharmaceutical researchers are only beginning to fully appreciate, and it is sitting in a cup of raw cacao that you can make tomorrow morning. If you have stayed with me through this entire conversation, I want you to walk away with one central understanding. The decline that so many men over 60 experience, the loss of energy, the fading drive, the hormonal depletion, the vascular compromise, it is real and it is physiological. But it is not a sentence. It is not an inevitable endpoint with no off-ramp. The biology of aging gives you real targets to work with and real tools to work with. And some of the most powerful of those tools are not in a pharmacy. They are in the extraordinary chemistry of plants that human beings have been using for thousands of years before we had the molecular biology to understand why they work. Robert, the patient I told you about at the beginning of this video, sent me a message on his 65th birthday. He said he felt more vital and more alive than he had at 55. He had started a small woodworking business with his son. He had taken his wife on a trip they had been postponing for 15 years. He was sleeping well, moving well, feeling well. He had not taken a single pharmaceutical hormone supplement. He had rebuilt himself from the inside out, starting with a cup of raw cacao every morning and a commitment to understanding what his body actually needed. That is what is possible, and it starts tomorrow morning if you choose to let it. If this video gave you something real, something you feel in your body just thinking about the changes you could make, please take a second and hit the like button. It helps this information reach the men who need it most. Subscribe to this channel if you are not already here, because we go this deep on every topic we cover. And leave me a comment below telling me what topic you want me to tackle next. I read every single one. The last thought I will leave you with is this: your body is not giving up on you. It is waiting for you to give it what it needs. Start tomorrow.